So that's what is meant by life is a happening. That when we look at it, the thought, stop, just happens. It comes out of our deep conditioning. And that thought that comes out of the up-to-date conditioning, that isn't the doer that says, oh, this is my mission, this is what I need to do, I need to stop thinking. That's not, that too is a spontaneous thought, but it's a spontaneous thought of the doer, and so it doesn't have that same samurai sword cutting power. And we may find that this resting in being is available a lot on some weeks, and then at other times we feel very disconnected from presence, and no matter what intention we have of dropping into being, it's just not available. And that's destiny, that's life unfolding, that's predetermined, it's inevitable that sometimes the presence, the essence of who we are isn't going to be available because the thinking mind is so active. And the teaching is not really on the one hand, I'd say that the teaching is all about happiness in daily living. But the teaching is also emphasizing, as part of this movement towards happiness in daily living, that you and I are not the doer. What that means is we're not in control. If we were in control, that would mean that the seeking would finish, because we would have controlled it. And so the core message is that life is a happening, that we're not the doer. Everything is happening as it's determined to happen. And so from time to time, there is no doubt that suffering is going to be there, present, and a resistance of the suffering is going to be there from time to time. Suffering or involvement with the involvement. And that's inevitable. Now, if we start finding that a relaxation with the primary suffering starts to happen, which means the suffering is there and something says what to do. When I say something, it's the working mind that has understood that when suffering is destined to be there, it's like a headache. It's going to be there for a set period of time, then it will fall away. And if the headache, as an analogy, and remember the headache is pain and suffering is a psychological thinking movement. So let's understand that the headache is just an analogy for something that comes, it lasts, and then it falls away. And suffering is going to be there. And while it's there, there's going to be an uncomfortableness. And that's why the secondary involvement comes in, because it's there isn't an acceptance that uncomfortableness is part of life. And so then the secondary involvement comes in, which is another layer of uncomfortableness. So at some point, we have to surrender, meaning the body-mind organism needs to understand that fighting suffering is futile. But once again, that's not something that a doer gets to say, oh, I am going to surrender, but rather when enough experience is there, for example, to see that your involvement in involvement is more suffering, at some point it just says stop. It doesn't help to be involved in the involvement. Now, a lot of So people can hear that, seekers can hear that, and say, oh, I understand it, but it just doesn't cut off the involvement. That doesn't mean anything's gone wrong. That's because that's destiny unfolding. So we can understand that there is no benefit in resisting the resistance or getting involved in the involvement. And yet in practice, there will sometimes be involvement in the involvement. And the feedback might be, why is that happening? Because I understand that involvement in the involvement is just more suffering. So why is it happening? And the answer is simple. You're not the doer. It's happening because it's destiny unfolding.